for a struggling TrainHard at the minute, because you're just adding layers and levels of complexity and strategy that you might not have to contest with on some of the other maps. Now, it looks like Chaoxis has just dropped out, but I'm going to give a guess that we may well see the operator banning phase through and then see if Chaoxis can make it back in time. We were very fortunate with Hive earlier. He was able to do the same thing. Yeah. So we will see how that goes. Production have just confirmed that, so we'll get the operator bans finished off, and then we'll see what happens with Chaoxis. So Hibana and Thatcher, no major surprises there, Em?
No, not at all. You're looking at Villa, you're looking at those hefty walls. If you're playing across Study, you're looking at the potential of keeping yourself at a safe distance too, if you're pushing Bedroom towards, obviously, the split site of Trophy. And you know, it limits the amount of mobility. It forces you into more uncomfortable situations as the attackers. And obviously, yeah, you could still bring a Kali, but no one does. She's with the way Villa's structured, where you've got to be internal for almost every engagement. It's rare for a team to be happy to pick her up and put her to use here. Mira and Malusi, again, 2 more limitations in terms of that spray from range, but
we know that they've got that aggression and ability. You know, if Blaz, if Chaoxis, if Durza can come out and have a good day here, there is no reason at all that they cannot push G2.
I think there's one stat that unfortunately hangs over them at the minute, is they're the only team from the start of this playday to suffer a 7-0, and the only team probably potentially by the end of this playday to have suffered one. You never know, they could pull off something pretty tough to predict against G2, but coming into this game with that as a figure from your previous game, oh, it's tough, because you're not just carrying that as a weight for yourself, but you've got to look at what happened to G2, and it was close to the wire versus Vitality, but they step up after a loss for their sake. They don't look at each opponent as it comes. They're much more equivalent to, based on what they say, of, well, we didn't play to our level and we're going to make sure that doesn't happen twice in a row. And to be honest, historically, they've kind of proven that right.
That was a nice little black eye cam there. Did you see Citizen just deploying that one? It was just underneath, just on the underside of the hatch there, there's a wooden beam. Something that you can really take good advantage of in Villa. If you look at the ceilings, it might not be something that you do too often, but whilst the players are running around, not in the basement, anywhere else but the basement, you'll notice they're all... They just sort of completely defeated my point there.
It's fine, keep going, keep rolling.
You can see above you now. Thank you, Citizen. There's beams absolutely everywhere. It can be a nightmare when you try to play vertically.
Didn't spot Citizen. That was it, and the pressure's come through, and that's a free kill. Swung round, didn't check the corner, and Citizen painted a picture inside art, and it was, hey, mate, welcome to the room.
Welcome to Big School, as he gets the kill there, but not before Kantor had gone by the wayside. Kantor, of course, playing down in the basement. He's going to be shut down on that roam nice and early. So that's Noera and Kantor. Jaeger and Iana gone 4x4. Black Eye Cam's getting taken out. We are downstairs in dining and kitchen this time around. G2 just mixing things up to start, not going to the usual top floor site. Spark going to take a good chunk of damage there. And Blaz is going to take even more. Citizens on an absolute tear at the minute. He's just flipping 180 this side to that inside of Piano, playing a tune for them, and he's leading them a merry dance at the minute as they can't get anywhere near him. And he just takes hit points, lives, names, numbers, everything he can get.
3 remaining bodies, and all of them are focused on Piano, and Citizen is somehow still standing. Kayak gets caught in the crossfade there, but Virtue locks off the support structure and finds Spark. Chaoxis finally stops Citizen, puts us into a 2 versus 2, but with the separation over 2 stories, they've got to try and reconvene and get that diffuser, and Uno is making sure every single footprint is watched fervently. Now, finally, they have an entrance into R, and it's safe, but Chaoxis is fighting a fight just near the bottom of the stair set to make sure, well, it stays safe.
Great play from Uno, getting down in the basement. I think at this point in the round, it's unlikely that TrainHard are going to be actively drawn in too heavily or potentially looking for him. They're just checking the drones, but not actually feeding them in and around the map because they just don't really have time for it anymore. So putting that heartbeat scanner to good use underneath there, Uno could be providing some round-winning information, but you got to remember the important thing is he does leave himself out of the fight, and that's why he's got himself back up them stairs into the kitchen and ready for that final 30 seconds in sight. We've got Virtue, we've got Uno. They're holding things down. Virtue on the SMG, Uno on the UMP. So not the best guns in the world here. However, Virtue will find the best shot in the world. A headshot onto Chaoxis, and that is followed up by a second, a 2 for Virtue, finishing off the round for G2, and that is a good ground floor defense to start things off.
It was a trade that came down to the end, but with one body still standing, it falls the favor of the defenders' aggression. Seemed to be how TrainHard led into that. They were quick to realize where the pressure points were coming from, and obviously getting the opener on Kanto and then trying to build around that was a success story. But with how G2 played before and how frequently we've seen that duo of Citizen and Virtue step up to cover each other, you have a feeling they're going to get more and more aggressive. An opener on an off-site, and now we find ourselves back to a traditional first. AVG is next up on the board.
Heading into round number 2 then, and that's an interesting start for G2, being able to pick up that ground floor site, as you say, and now it leaves them with a real opportunity to go 3-0 here. But what I would say for TrainHard so far is that it's a good start. I know it's easy to look at the scoreboard, and G2 have got 1 on the board and TrainHard don't, but let's not forget we're on Villa. It's a defensive-sided map. G2 have done what we would expect them to do, and that is to take the opening defense, but it came down to a 2 versus 2, and TrainHard had good moments where they were able to close down roamers, got a nice opening kill onto Kanto, and they did do a good job of many things, and that's what I wanted to see. Not necessarily them coming out and just winning rounds on attack immediately, but it was about them coming out and showing that they're not being impacted too much by that result against Kavana. The confidence hasn't been completely destroyed. They're coming in here, they know that they've got a game to play, and they know that they're capable of playing it, and we can see that they're once again tearing in there towards the building, nice and aggressive, nice and confident, and that's what we want to see from TrainHard today.
Yeah, it's quick progression, and they're making sure that they don't fall victim to caution, because in that case you find yourself really suffering on the approach against a team that likes to thrive on momentum. Here, Kayak, he's rotating back around, but look at Chaoxis. He's already putting pressure down long there, looking for a way to find some very quick swings on the top of the brick stairs. Nora is making sure that they can catch anybody round as Chaoxis drones out the back, and look at the 3 red bodies steadily making their way back over from landing. They need some support back on the site, but they need to know it's a bit safe to actually make that journey. Popped an air jab, didn't get popped in the face for the trouble. The big concern there and the big call is they're off site and trying to hold it. TrainHard, can you find some semblance of digging in?
I'm loving this from TrainHard at the minute, getting such quick control over those side stairs, dominating that area. Noera's got 90 corridor completely locked down. That prevents a lot of rotations back towards site. It forces G2 to only use the northeast side, and then you've got Chaoxis on the upside down rappel that's again making things doubly difficult down that line of sight, and just meaning that G2 cannot move round at will. And right now TrainHard need to start thinking about how they take advantage of this situation. They've got the control they need. They've got into a power position. Now what do they do with it? And Uno's looking to get aggressive and challenge onto that window, but taking a little bit of chip damage. He's just going to back away. He's having absolutely no part of that. And it is really now in the hands of TrainHard as to what comes next in this round. But the big question on all of our lips is it going to be what TrainHard wants that comes next? And Kayak, he's not too sure it is going to be, as he finds a headshot to open things up, and that's the Ash of Blaz gone into the dirt.
Well, Kayak might not be aware that that's open. Now he is, as he pops up and sees it, digs himself behind the bar to keep some safety. The final canister pops round the corner and forces them back, but with 45 seconds, well, they still have time to reconvene. It looks like red stairs might be a potential point of ingress. Nora is actually going to come back round and offer some support with the Gemini. Kayak suffers from a long-range frag grenade, probably from that side. It's actually underneath. Durza is digging up to see if they can dishevel the man that is behind the bar, but with the pump shotgun ready, he swings up, pops round and tries to get the second for the round. It's actually the cover over the shoulder from Kanto that gets one more. There's another head pop by Kayak, keeping control of long. The pressure's on the window. Everything is coming up G2, and Chaoxis started the round with some quick pressure onto long and is going to end it, unfortunately, not even getting in the building.
What a play from Kayak there. We've got to call that one out. He was low health, could not take a single bullet. He was practically turning himself into water, to get himself closer to that bar toe that there wasn't a toe poking out that could be seen, because one bullet would have been the end of it. And then the speed with which he was able to peek out, hit his fire, and then peek back in and get himself into cover was unreal, and then flings himself around and gets a nice headshot on the door as well. Wonderful play from Kayak and G2 as a whole. They were pinned down within sight pretty much for a lot of that. TrainHard came in and, as I described, got very early control of some key areas, but G2 were able to just put up a brick wall, frustrate them, and not allow them to do anything with the map possession that they'd gained.
Trophy is where we head over to next, and as you said, the pace of TrainHard has been good so far, but they just couldn't quite find the handle on that little last square foot to swing themselves around the corner and into sight itself. As you said, Kayak locked it down and kept everything cool and under control, at least enough time to allow the 3 roaming G2 bodies to get themselves back towards the site itself. Here, I'm curious to see if we continue to see this point aggression. TrainHard, they seem to blinker themselves towards an objective and throw themselves at it. And I guess I'm curious if they might try and go for some of the roam play, pull the players of G2 away from the site itself, because they're obviously very adept at rotating back when they need to.
Kayak setting up the frost mats, and we have seen an increasing popularity towards these bear traps in the recent past. We've seen players caught in them today. It used to be one of those things that a frost mat was a rarity to even see in a professional match, let alone for a player to get caught in there. But since Frost's loadout has been updated somewhat and is slightly more useful than it used to be, we're seeing a lot more play on the Canadian operators, so inevitably we see more players end up in the frost mats as well, and it's always a fascinating one to watch exactly where those placements are and how the defenders get tricky about leaving them in positions where they might just capture an invading enemy. Now Blaz is looking to get himself inside of Closet, goes in, gets himself established, looking to push and get control over Master, which will allow TrainHard to start first part of this push, because what they want to do is get that wall open into the trophy room to allow them the opportunity to start getting that diffuser on the ground, but it's going to take some doing yet.
Dozer, he's waiting at the barbs to see if he gets a bit of attention on the pop round. They have. Obviously, Kayak dug in on that corner behind the shield, and he's dug out Blaz and taken care of that body. Virtue has the camera in the eye, and the idea someone's rotating. What a time to go to it. There's one, there's dropped, and there's an angle and a swing and a pick, and Virtue finds the saving grace. Kayak finds a fight elsewhere in the meantime, as Norea is forced back down red and back away from landing, with Uno yet again on the heels with that pulse. Tight angles. No one is taken out as they find themselves still standing and suffering, and all of this is just playing into the hands of G2, but Spark finds something back. Finally, they've been able to spill some blood onto the site itself. They need to try to clear themselves a bit of an opening, a bit of a gap, to try to get a little bit more of a chance at pulling a round away.
Uno is just causing a problem here, and he's not being challenged, and that is the bigger issue for TrainHard. They need to be recognising the value of the information that the Pulse is feeding. They need to be getting down underneath, challenge him in 2s and 3s, just get him cornered, get him killed, and get themselves an advantage, and that's something they've really failed to do so far. Chaoxis
swings round and gets one. There's Uno, though, waiting and baiting and prey, and that's a frost mat against Spark, I believe, or potentially shot up from underneath. There it is, and there it goes. Oh no, the Pogmat, it's back.
What a performance we're having from Kayak so far, not just on the frost there, managing to get himself, I think it was 3 on the round overall. He got himself the opener as well onto Blaz, but he's just having a great day. He's all over the map so far in these first 3 rounds, and he really looks like he's starting to settle into G2, find his rhythm, find his place, and that can be a dangerous thing because, as you see, once he gets settled, he can be an absolute nightmare. 6-1 there, 6-1.
I mean, you know, this is his time to shine, I guess. He's obviously had that time to find his feet inside the G2 roster, and yeah, maybe Maybe Citizen, maybe Virtue, maybe they've had their games this season. Maybe it's Kayak's time.
Maybe they've had their games. I think that's one way to put it.
Kayak's done. He doesn't want to be seen as the support. He's like, listen, lads.
It's time for me to get
It's time for me to take the top of the boards.
And that's exactly what he is doing at the minute. No matter how Virtue tries, he's 5-2 and just cannot keep pace with Kayak at the minute. But between them, 11 kills inside of 3 rounds. They are absolutely decimating. Just to put that into context, in 3 rounds, there is only a possibility of 15 kills across the board. 11 of them have gone to only 2 players on G2. So it just shows the value of Kayak and Virtue right now. Now, looking at round number 4, we're going to be heading back down to Dining and Kitchen once again. Changes have been made for G2. I don't think the Frost was brought along in round 1, but following the success of the last one, Kayak is going to go that way this time. Now, Uno not bringing the pulse this time, given that they're on the downstairs. He can't sit underneath and feed that information back in quite the same. He tried it in basement last time, but it's harder to make use of things like the Nitro. So this time, he's brought along that Valkyrie. He's still feeding that information. That is the key factor here. Getting those black eye cameras out and feeding in information. And right now, G2, they are having an absolute feast based on what Uno is serving up.
Well, they're being a lot more cautious now, TrainHard. They're making sure they drone every corner, but nobody is hiding around the back side of Art this time. Still, we are seeing a steady roam with previous presence of Kanto up above them, and I'm curious to see if that's something TrainHard decide they need to try and dig out. 3 bodies, in fact, playing on the second story, playing above. Durs starting to apply some pressure underneath directly to the door of the kitchen itself, and that will definitely draw some attention from those big guns that are still above. But it's really one of those matter of time situations. Who is going to be the first that tries to take the fight? Are they really just going to hope that they can dig in, overwhelm the site, put the plant down and put us in a post plant before the bodies above can react properly? Or can they start playing some tricks like this? There's a cooked grenade and there's a Kanto Raketti.
Very nice nade from Durza onto Kanto. Cannot over-egg the difficulty of those nades onto the ceiling. You've got to have them timed exactly right, and that is what Durza does now. Chaoxis shuts down Kayak. Citizen does get one in between for G2, but still find ourselves in a 3 versus 2. But one concern that remains for me for TrainHard is they're not always dealing with those ancillary players well enough. They're going straight to site, route 1. This time, it seems to be working out for them. Durza is getting the diffuser down. Citizen is fighting. That's a 1 versus 2 now after he gets himself the first onto Chaoxis. He's still going to have to find 2 more, but he is full health and he may well have some information inside of sight. I don't know exactly where the black eye cameras were set up by Uno, but it looks like the angles are pretty much covered. He wins 1. He brings it to a 1 versus 1. Surely not. Citizen is looking to clear this out. Does he know where the last man is? He moves around Durza after getting the plant, shuts down Citizen, finds the headshot they needed. And I tell you what, I was a little bit worried for TrainHard there. I'd made the comment about them not picking up and dealing with the ancillary players and focusing too much on sight, and it looked like one of those players might just really hurt them then, but Durza, cool as cucumber in the kitchen, able to shut them down.
Tough situation to be in, and you see a drone and you drop it, even if it looked like it was jammed at that moment in time. You just kind of instinctually go, well, they know where I am, so, but we didn't actually see the rotation and reevaluation of what they were aiming at until that drone was dropped. The game was given away, and it gave Durza that advantage on the swing round the corner. Still 3-1. There's still potential for them to pull some more rounds back, and they have a bit of momentum. They struck first and then instantly dove themselves into sight. The diffuser went cold for a little period of time, but again, the use of utility there from TrainHard, fishing with those grenades and trying to get those bodies above, and even in the situation of Citizen, pushing them away from the watch on the diffuser so they could recollect and put it down. It's good from TrainHard.
It was much better. This time they are going to be attacking onto Aviator and Games. We've got a nice replay. It was a beautiful opening nade as Kanto just steps across. Unfortunate timing for him, but caught out by Durza underneath. And I really do love to see those kills. One of the highest skill kills in Siege, no doubt about it. And then moves in with a great headshot onto Virtue to follow it up as well. It was certainly the round for Durza there. 3 kills and the diffuser plant. It was all about what he could bring to the table. Now, round 5, we can see that TrainHard are approaching from the north side of the map. So when we look at an Aviator game site, there's two ways to push this really. You can move in from the south, as we saw TrainHard do last time. They got very good control over the south stairs and the 90 corridor, but they weren't really able to make sort of anything pay from it to get the dividends from that map possession. So this time they are looking to move in from the north side, which will be through Astro as they move up through into the astronomy room, and they'll push through Trophy and Master, clear out any roamers along the way, and then look to aggress onto site. The one danger here is that you can get caught funneling in through the single door that's on the northeast side of sites. That's something they need to be very careful of, but Durza and Blaz, they open us up, and TrainHard are here to play them. That's 3 without response from G2.
This was the question I had before. The next time we were up here, are they going to try and take the fight to that roam game first? They saw a site before and got stuck kind of a little bit behind the walls as it allowed the other G2 players to pull back. But here, this is it, a full clear. They knew that there would be this extension and decided, well, we can take it. We can win these fights, pull them apart, and then put the pressure on the site itself. With a minute 30, they have done it so quickly. And now it's just a matter of seeing if they can finish off the 2 remaining bodies. Virtue and Kayak either side have pulled themselves into pretty aggressive situations here. Kayak's holding close with the potential to run down long if need be. Virtue is in a position to swing down onto the vault door if he wants to, but look at this. Chaoxis is the first point of call, and Kayak's going to take the flash and just get out of there.
If you wanted anybody in a 2 versus 5 right now, it would be Virtue and Kayak. They've certainly had the strongest performances for G2 so far, but this one is going to mean an epic attempt if they want to try and close out this round. Kayak, he's just aware that he's potentially getting pushed on these south stairs, but Durza is in absolutely no rush to move his way onto them. He's just going to hold his angle and just back off while that smoke canister goes out. Now, 45 seconds left on the clock. There is still a lot of pressure for Kayak and Virtue to absorb here.
Kayak gets the first and pulls away. It's Blaz. He's looking to try and get the swing on the second, but he's a bit too deep. Unfortunately, the shotgun doesn't work that far, but Virtue finds the trade and has 30 seconds to see if he can find 3 more or stop that precious diffuser. There's the pings. They're constant and they're threatening, and that's all 3 bodies, but the rotation is coming around the big opener. He's buried in the back of a gun vault. He peppers bullets towards one, but they're sticking the plant behind the bar. In the meantime, it's still covered, and it's still TrainHard to find their second.
There we go. This is the performance that we wanted to see out of TrainHard. We want them to make a challenge of this game. We want to see just exactly what they are made of, but also to stretch G2 as well. We want to see what the 2020 League Finals can bring to 2021. And that is the position G2 are in. They've had a good start so far, but could they falter here against TrainHard? That is the question that we're facing down now. They're going to have another attempt at Aviator Games Room. It will be their final defense before we move on. TrainHard, albeit having a hard start here, they've come back. The 3-0 down was absolutely no consequence to them, and they've dragged themselves back into this. Even if G2 were to win this round, 4-2 split on Villa, not too bad at all.
That's it. That's them digging in. And I guess one of the concerns I had at the beginning was they were caught a bit unaware in the first round, but it was scrappy. It was full of energy from TrainHard. The second as well, it was a bit blinkered, and they started to slow. And I guess in that moment, when you see the 3 rotation, you're like, are they going to get into their heads a little bit, or are they going to be able to keep this up? And it's really, really reassuring to see them apply more pressure, keep themselves going, keep that energy hot, and find that balance. It looks like they aren't here to take this sitting down. They're pushing and pushing and going to keep on pushing further. And can they find a final attack? Because at the beginning, it didn't seem so likely, but now, well, it seems like G2 are the ones left a little bit lacking.
A lot of utility being applied out onto the north side this time around from G2 then, showing that adaptation, recognising that that was where TrainHard pushed through in numbers last time around. But you got to remember the difference between round number 2 and round number 5, where both attacks onto Aviator Games have come from completely opposite directions. So it shows that TrainHard do have more than a plan A in their pocket. So it may well be that they bring something different to the table this time around again. It's immediate attention seems to be paid here towards the north side, but they're learning, they're getting in underneath and they're chasing down roamers. However, they're not going to have any joy as they come across Uno, and he does the chasing down, getting the headshot onto Blaz and taking the Ash off the board. Tries to use his nitro from underneath on the mute, but will be unsuccessful. However, great start for G2 there, because it also leaves Uno still in a position to continue fighting. He's in the pantry and he's looking for a sweet treat.
But what is going to be whatever gets the first bite, and will they be able to finish the meal? Because Uno is obviously a little bit scratched, and Kanto is too, and, well, a little bit further. Durza is able to lock it off and keep themselves going with this bit of momentum, but... it's just this moment of, okay, TrainHard, you're a few feet behind now. You are struggling, but you've been able to put some energy back into these rounds before. And although you've lost 2 on this roam clear, on this attempt at trying to find them, there's still the possibility. And Chaoxis has led them back into some rounds before. Big rotations are coming out, and Spark is at least able to get Virtue. And with a minute 20, it's a little bit of, okay, Chaoxis is digging himself underneath towards the library, and we can see them stacking up across the top floor as well. They're reconvening and trying to rotate and isolate, which is the play right now, but it's concern. Look at this, 2 stories, and he's met in the middle by Uno, and that puts them in a much darker position.
Uno and Kanto have just had an absolute field day here in round 6. There's been no ability whatsoever to shut them down underneath. Citizen finishes things off with a nice double from sight. It was all that was left for TrainHard to try and just get themselves into the top floor and see if there was any way to ingress into sight whatsoever and try to flip the script and put any sort of impact onto the round that they could do. But they were ready. Citizen just locked, loaded, and put them both down. And that really was a round for Uno and Kanto there. Great performance from them on the ground floor, Rome.
4-2 G2, and from a lot of people this is probably closer than it would have been expected, and I really think that's credit to TrainHard, because it's tough to come into this situation against one of these big teams, especially when you're coming off the back of a loss. So are they technically, but it was a very close 1-1, and they're a team that's still battling for the top. And yet TrainHard have come here so confidently on their attacks, and I'm really... both that mix, you know, that mix of excited and curious to see how it translates on a defense.
Absolutely. I'm fascinated to see now. They've had a good couple of attacking rounds there, particularly where they've really been sort of clinical in what they've done. They've been unfortunate in a few of the others, but for me, I think the problem here for them on defense is they weren't really winning enough of the 50-50 gunfights. We saw Kayak absolutely dominate from sight behind bar. That really should have been shut down when he's only on 20 HP. He shouldn't be winning those fights. And there was a few other examples like it downstairs just then, as we've seen. And Citizen in Piano as well was another one where he was able to just spin on his heel and hit 2 kills, 180 degrees between them. And I just think that they need to pick up the gunfights here. And they've got the ability. Durza, Blaz, Chaoxis, we know that they can win those big gunfights, and TrainHard, if they can step that up, then they could really make a game of this. But I tell you now, this one is not over.
No, not by a long shot. Heavy shield presence on the top of the brick stairs, and look at this, almost immediately caught out there as they pull instantly away from Uno Nora. I'm not sure if they knew he was there, but, well, they definitely knew Virtue was there, and he pulls out of Art Room, probably with a little, I'm going to guess, a release of some pent-up breath there as he's able to take that C4.
I think there will certainly have been an exhale there as he took a step out and just got away with one. But Uno, he's moving around the outside of the map carefully. We can see Blaz has taken some damage there, nearly down to half HP. Going to find his way upstairs. It is Noera this time that opens things up with a headshot onto Citizen, shutting down the Ash on the entry. So that's a good start for Noera. A little bit of a quiet game so far for Noera, and it's going to get a lot quieter as Uno silences her and puts him down into the dirt there. 4 versus 4, 1 minute 30 we approach now, nearly halfway through, and still a lot of work for G2 to do here, as we see Blaz is still out on the roam, and TrainHard certainly not being penned back into sight. They're willing to keep rotating and adapting here, and they want to keep G2 guessing, and I think that is the way to go.
That's it. You can see they've taken hyper-aggressive holds here, waiting for somebody to get a little bit too close in that balcony, and G2 don't want to play that game. They're not going to risk it. They realize they've still obviously got 70 seconds, so they're going to make sure that they can make the most of it. A big rotation is seemingly coming out all the way to the bedroom. him. The lion scan goes off yet again, and nobody is caught, I say, until the very end, where somebody is around the top, though. Look at the pace that they're applying. They're instantly swanning towards Blaz there across the top. They find him, they lock it down, and now they've been able to find that coveted bit of control and cover towards the site itself. Still with 50 seconds left, but that is elusive body dropped, and that is a huge amount of map that has suddenly fallen into their hands.
I can see two silhouettes ahead of us. I can't see the third player for the side of TrainH. He's down there on side stairs. That's where. So we've got all three accounted for on top floor. Durza gets a wonderful kill in the 90 corridor there just to level things up 3-3. 30 seconds left to go. And G2, they need to start getting decisive here and thinking about exactly how they're going to make this push. They've got players on both sides of the site, which could be a nice benefit for them. Virtue doesn't quite catch the head of Spark there, just moving across. Kanto is able to get into sight and start getting that diffuser down, but out goes the Nitro and will catch him. Meanwhile, Virtue does take down Sparks. That leaves us 2 versus 2. Diffuser back in hand, and now Virtue has the freedom to cover this plant, and that's exactly what he tries to do, but it's going to be Chaoxys who beats him on the reverse angle. What a shot coming out of Chaoxys.
Dug in the gun vault and made sure he made it count. Beautiful play there. The C4 against the strategy table to get the first. You could see they kind of anticipated it, and there was a quick pickup from the other side of the cover from G2, but, well, it caught the wrong person, and just that one kill went away from them. Attack timeout is what we're going to have from the side of G2, and it, to be honest, even though they're ahead, it makes sense.
I think it does. I mean, you've got to look at the last 4 rounds, and TrainHard have won 3 of them. That's, you know, if we narrow it down like that, G2 are on the wrong end of the momentum here, and they've just lost a situation where you'd argue, really, they should have been coming away from more. Virtue has Gunvolt locked down. He really shouldn't be losing that fight to the Goyo on the reverse angle. It was a great shot from Chaoxys. Let me take nothing away from him. But really, if you're covering the plant, you got to say, you know, even put a few little pre-fires in there as you get 3 or 4 seconds through that plant. You know that the challenge is going to come. And it was a little bit of a steal for TrainHard, to be honest.
I think that's it as well, is when you're looking at obviously how TrainHard have dug themselves into this, it's quick builds of momentum, and usually you'll talk about attack timeout, you'll talk about how it can take some momentum away, but we've already kind of seen it scuttled against TrainHard a couple of times, and yet they still pick themselves up, they still move into it. So I think G2 here, it's just trying to get their heads back on, because those little engagements, most of the play days, you'd be like, that's them on a lock, and here they just seem a little adrift.
Chaoxys is coming in with a big day so far for TrainHard. We can see they're top in the leaderboard, 9 and 5. Now extended beyond any of the G2 players. He just needs a little bit of support from his team. He's got Durza on there with 6, but if we remember, 3 of those did come inside of 1 round. So just need 1 or 2 of the TrainHard players to step up. But we have seen previously in that Team Secret win on Clubhouse that Chaoxys can be that leading man if he can come in and start driving the team. If they can step in behind him, it can be the force that TrainHard need to push them forward and over the line, as we saw on that day.
Wow, the Pogmat is back, and so are tweets on screen. I guess it's the perfect occasion. Do you have game audio right now?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't.
Oh, there it is. There it is. As I was just lost it, you know, something in the ears for a second, and I guess maybe that was the E1D as they pulsed themselves very quick. It wasn't, I know I'm counting, but the pressure and the jokes, I just can't stop them, and neither can they stop TrainHard's movement and mobility. They're keeping themselves alive and guessing. They're concerned about the angles underneath, but look at this, it's a much more direct push, and, well, it's bold. No, Ray, I guess you knew the wall was falling and want to take a quick swing and a swig of anybody that might be out there, but bold, you don't usually live to be very old.
Kayak very close to just removing his head from his shoulders there. Kanto it will be, however, that will do the honours, and that leaves us 5 versus 4 with the Arune gone. So not the end of the world in terms of utility. Of course, all those Surya gates will already be out in position, and anybody on the defensive team can shoot them after they've been disabled and the time has elapsed and they are ready to reactivate. It doesn't have to be the Arune. Any single shot will reactivate them. So no huge loss there other than on the terms of the numbers. Now, Blaz is going to keep trying to hold down the south stairs for the time being, and that's basically there to prevent access into study, which is where G2 are just trying to push and create a little bit of pressure at the minute. But as we can see, Kantor and Kayak have both moved themselves away, and they are heading over to the north side. So I dare say that Spark, he's going to find himself under a little bit of pressure in that bathroom very, very soon.
Well, the team talk has worked. 2 kills off the bat, and it looks like they're angling themselves for this third. Blaz is the one that's loose underneath in Mudroom, concerned about the possibility of the hop in on the window that they played before, but it's a little bit of a standoff right now. The standoff, however, seems to be playing to the favor of G2, who can body press the site and get one more. They've got to move back. They've got to find it, but they don't. The cover was there, and so is a flawless round.
What a response after the tactical timeout from G2. It just goes to show how valuable those pauses can be. Just having the opportunity to take the foot off the gas, just have a little appraisal of exactly what's going on, maybe what's going wrong and where you're getting hurt particularly. Make those mid-game adaptations and then come back in stronger for it. And that's exactly what G2 are able to do there. So they're going to be attacking onto Trophy and Statuary once again. You're going to see if they can get this closed off this time. And TrainHard, I think at this point, this is now a very important round for them. If this goes on to match point G2, given the struggles they've had so far, I think they struggle to bring it back to there. I can't see it going to overtime if G2 get to a position of only needing one round. Whereas if TrainHard can get this and keep themselves in touch and just one round behind, I think that's a big mental plus for them.
100%. And I think it's one of those things of exhaustion. The longer a game goes on, the tougher it can be, especially if you're playing this very quick-paced play game that TrainHard opened up with a lot of quick movements and rotations and redefining of their roles inside, around, but also just hitting the site as hard as they can. And, you know, it becomes the situation, the longer you're doing it, the tougher it can be to keep finding those little pockets of energy and keep digging it into the back and finding more and more. So they've got to see if they can at least solidify this, the other secondary on the split, and find themselves at least back towards AVG, which was a very good hold. But again, very electric, very mobile, very aggressive. Here comes that run of red as G2 descend upon this balcony.
Largely the same as we saw last time around. We've got Noera playing inside of Aviator there and just looking to hold on to that south side balcony, keep G2 out of study. It didn't go particularly well last time around as we saw Kayak and Kantor particularly applying pressure to the Aruni and able to shut him down without too much of a problem. So Noera needs to learn lessons from that and does exactly that and dips away to continue living his life and fighting longer into the round, but he will move back into that site. He's got a little bit of support from Durza this time around, so they are doubling down on that south side defense. They've got Chaoxis at the top of the red stairs as well, and they're not wanting to give up anything on the top floor too easily here, TrainHard.
Well, Kantor Raketi finds the first deep against Durza from the study window. Nore gets aggressive yet again towards that smoke, popping as many of those big pellets as possible. But G2, they're in no rush. They're holding his escape and his angles, and they know that they just have to capitalize and start crashing down on these two blue bodies. It seems like one might have rotated round to 90 to offer some support. The Gemini's drop. The E1D comes through, but there is no instant follow-up. More flashes, more grenades, more utility to get this one body out. The crossfire comes through. Blaz is able to pick up some of the pieces and keep them safe. For now, everything is starting to be learned and lessons are read through study. Citizen gets revenge, gets the cover, and that leaves them yet again isolated. They seem like they might be trying to pull out, but with the windows hold either side, it's Chaoxis that gets dropped. Nore finally finds some blood, finally finds something, and also finds himself back on site.
Last time around at this point, G2 did decide to rotate, and we saw Kanto and Kayak move away towards Master Bedroom, but this time it looks like they are largely committing to the south side push, except we do see Kayak outside of the map, just slowly making his way around there, and Uno joining him on the roof as well. So some adjustment to the G2 attack here. Obviously happy that they've cleared out that south side roam, and they know now that it's time to think about building some pressure onto site as Noera has dipped back. Spark is there anyway as he's spent the entire round playing on site. 30 seconds left to go, and G2 need to get a move on here.
That's it. It's down to a 3 versus 2. It is far from impossible, especially with those smoke canisters still in pocket under the 30-second mark. 2 of those can buy a huge amount of time on a single door. It's just whether they can get the swing. Nore opens up in the best possible way, gets one, gets dropped and traded. They know exactly where they are. There's the first of those canisters. They dig through because they got to get that diffuser and get it back to a place they can plant. They find it. And they have Kayak trusted on that cover, and why not? He's been phenomenal so far. A post-plant situation now. Spark in a 2 versus 1. No more canisters. He threw both of them deep, and well, it's just trying to find one of these two. Isolate the firefight. They know where he is, but he's got a shotgun and it's a close angle to swing on. He's concerned of just where they are, and there he is. Pops them and drops them. Less than 30 seconds now to go on the timer. Kayak is playing deep, and that shotgun won't work at this range. And Kayak, he certainly does. G2 map point.
Unfortunate for Spark there, made a real attempt at that, but it was always going to be tough, especially when your primary weapon is that shotgun and you're in a site like Trophy Statuary that is just absolutely laden with long lines of sight. It's always going to be a nightmare to try and challenge those on the reverse when you've got somebody like Kayak facing off against you and the diffuser active on the ground. So that's going to be, as you say, match point now for G2. They only need one more round, and I think that is almost this game won. I won't completely discount TrainHard. There is, as much as there is a second team left in the server, there is always a possibility of a comeback, but this is going to be a big ask for TrainHard now. They need to get themselves 3 in a row just to take it to overtime. There are no more mistakes available, and they are heading down to try and defend dining and kitchen.
That's it. It's a big ask and a big hill to climb. It's 3 attempts for G2 to lock it out and 3 just to get to OT. So, TrainHard, can you bring some of that positivity and energy that carried you through some of the earlier engagements? Can you put this out and try and find some of secondary success this season, or will you be, unfortunately, in the situation of a 4th loss so far? Getting themselves locked down inside the kitchen, using the castle to limit some of the approach and make sure they don't suffer instantly from the approach of G2, who have seemed pretty reinvigorated since their timeout.
My concern for TrainHard here, not within this round, but if we look sort of longer term, we've said that they need 3 rounds without response from G2. They've just failed to defend Trophy and Statuary twice, and the problem they have now is they have to successfully defend that site. So no matter what happens, if they win here, then it's 6-4. They go to Aviator Games, win there for argument's sake, it's 6-5. They still have to lock down Trophy and Statuary or Living Room and Library, which is a site rarely seen played. So I would presume it would be Trophy Statuary, and I think that's going to be a big ask, especially in the mental game when they've already lost there twice.
That's it. It's a huge hill for them to try to clamber up, but they had so much energy. It's keeping that mentality, keeping that pressure, and trying to keep G2 at bay, which is no easy task any day of the week, let alone at the end of Super Week. The E1D rains out in the sky, and Kanto Raketti tries to pull the trigger on the LMG. Oh, no.
I think that could be the beginning of the end there, as Kanto just hits a fantastic pre-fire. Just as the man moves across the doorway, he knew that he was peaking. He knew Noero was just bouncing backwards and forwards, and he took full opportunity and popped his head like a cantaloupe as he did. And that leaves us 5 versus 4 with the Jaeger off the board. So not the biggest loss for TrainHard. The ADS utility will already be out there and in use for the team. What they need to do is now find a kill or 2. They need somebody like Chaoxis. They need somebody like Durza, Blaz, anybody at this point to step up and get a kill or 2 and give them that man advantage so they're not playing from behind. Allowing Uno to walk in from behind, from the reverse of sight, and just take one-shot headshots onto people is not going to help the cause here. We have 2 kills rain back in, but it won't be enough as 2 more are answered from Citizen and Kanto, and that is a quick finish for G2.
A little placement there from Kayak based on what he thinks fuels him for today. Hey, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not the judge, but what I do know is a 7-3. Well, it was expected, I think, from G2. It's not to discount how TrainHard played, because they put up a great energetic fight in the early game. It just seemed like as soon as G2 had this moment of, well, we know what we can do and we know how we can do it and win our ones, you look at that kill tally at the end on each of them, all of them were putting bodies down.
They were, and I think the thing